This video demonstrates turning compost into soil. Here at Solid Ground, we make our own soil. So the first thing is, what exactly is compost? And compost is all the organic matter that's generated in the kitchen that you don't eat. And the list of those things is really quite extensive. So there's coffee grounds and there's eggshells. When you make fruit salad and cut up a bunch of fruit, all the skins and the rinds and the stuff that you don't use with the vegetables. Another great source of compost is when you make teas up. All of that leftover material, that's ideal compost. When you clean off your plates before you put them in the dishwasher, all that matter that you're cleaning off can go into the jar. And I use jars about this size with a wide neck, and I like it so that the lid can just set down and that's tight. Because in the summertime, it gets a little smelly in there because there's a lot going on. And I try to have a liquid in there. I add water and you know, when I rinse out a pot before I stick it in the dishwasher, I put that rinsed water into the compost so that it's already starting. It becomes like a slurry, and it's starting right here in the kitchen before it ever becomes part of the soil. Also, we want to cut things up. We want surface area. I don't put big giant pieces in there. If you've done much cooking, you realize when things are cut up smaller, they cook faster. And that is the same thing with composting. When things are cut up smaller, they're going to turn back to soil a whole lot faster. I can just add it to my compost, and I don't fill it all the way to the top. I leave maybe an inch or so room for it. So let's talk about what you don't add to the compost. What I don't add, I don't put animal bones in. I don't put the tops off of pineapples generally, but the rest of the pineapple, absolutely. And I don't tend to put in avocado pits, although it's not a big deal if you do. And if you cut them up in half or quarter them, they'll compost, but it's not a big deal. I use unbleached filters for my coffee, so all of that is very compostable, no problems. There's no chemicals in any of this stuff. And I'm cooking with organic food, so there's not a lot of chemicals in the food that I'm preparing to begin with. The purer this is in terms of the amount of chemicals in it, the better the soil is going to be, and the least amount of chemicals in the soil. So you notice that I have the container right in proximity to my sink and my dishwasher, because as I'm working with stuff in the kitchen, in the sink, and in the dishwasher, I want my compost right there, because if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So this is like part of my kitchen, just like the coffee pot, like the paper towel container, the silverware drawer. It's part of it. This is how I conditioned myself years ago that composting is part of the whole cycle in the kitchen. Let's talk about proximity, because there's 4 elements to consider. One is the proximity of the compost container in the kitchen. Next, where are you going to store it? Where are you going to store these containers? You're not going to compost every time you get one jar. It's sort of like doing laundry. Just because you've got a couple of dirty clothes, you're not running a load of a wash. It builds it up to a point. It's the same thing here. Now, my garage is right out that door. And we're going to go out there in a moment, and I have some shelving that all these jars are kept in. So for me to put a full jar outside and bring a new jar in, real simple. It's very close by. The simpler this is, the more likely you're going to do it. The next thing is my compost pile is right out there. It's right out there. So all I got to do is walk around my garage and go out, and it's right there. So that's the third area. So you've got, where do you keep the jar in the kitchen? Where do you store the jars before you compost? Where's your compost pile at? And how is that in proximity to the garden or where you're growing your food? And you're going to actually use the soil when it's done. Because the least amount of distance that any of this stuff has to be moved, the better. Because here at Solid Ground, our motto is more food and less work. So now let's look at how the compost is stored in the garage. So the first thing I was going to mention was to make sure you had the lids on tight, and I didn't, and see what happens. Yeah, so this is part of permaculture, and we learn from our mistakes. Here are the jars, and of course we've covered that we want to make sure the lids are on tight, all right? But I just stack them up here, and this is the container that has the lids in it. So when I bring out a jar and I take an empty jar back in, I just put the lid on it and bring it back in. So the lids stay here and the jars stack up here. So we have a bunch of them. So let's go ahead and take them out to the compost pile. And the way to do that is to get a wheelbarrow, which is right over here. I'm a big fan of proximity. I don't want to move any further than I have to. I mean, I can get really pedantic about it, but you only got so much energy and so much time. And I don't want this to overwhelm you. So it's like, well, your life is on hold now because you're busy making compost all the time. It's like, you want to do more things. This is a great thing to do, but you've got to do it smart so you can get on with your life too. So let's get on with putting the jars in. Now here's one that's got a clear jar and you can kind of see the stuff, and some people are okay with that and some people would prefer to have an opaque container, so you'll have to decide. All right, now we're going to take this out to the compost pile. So this is the compost area. There's lots of ways to go about it. Some people like to get those little plastic spinner things. They put the compost in, they spin it around, and it's good for certain applications. But I'm dealing in a lot of bulk because I do garden installations for other people. So I have to generate a lot more soil. And my soil has got to go from compost to soil really fast. So having it outdoors like this with a couple of measures in place works really well. This end one is all done. This is dirt ready to go. If I want to put dirt in my garden anywhere, if I want to do an installation, I just dig this up. It's ready to go. These two are sort of like in various stages of what we call cooking. So this steak is where I composted the last time. And if you stay tuned, we'll see what it looks like. But first, we're going to put the compost that we now have in the ground. And I want the hole big enough to hold all of the compost and a little bit more. So I need to have a good sized hole. Let's start here. So before I get started, back to proximity, I want this wheelbarrow as close to where I'm going to be working. It's interesting, but I can just shift my body. I don't have to move much. I undo the jar, drop it in, shake it out, and that's what it looks like right there. Here's another one going in. Now this I have to shake because there's a lot of material and there wasn't as much liquid in it. And that's the process, just like that. What I want to do is I want to mix in some dirt. So I'm going to cover it just a little bit with dirt, just like that. And I'm going to take my shovel, and you can hear it, it's like a mix. It's like mixing cement. But I'm working the dirt right into it, just like that. I'm going to cover it again. And I'm going to do this again. Now it's not as slurpy because it's working the soil into it. So now the compost is getting connected to the soil that's adjacent to it. There it is. Now here's a very important point. I'm out in the woods and we got critters galore. And you guessed it, critters love compost. But not if they can't smell it. And if they can't smell it, it's because you covered it up. Like, seriously, you covered it up. I'm going to put 2 to 3 inches right over that pile. Just like that. Now we've done it. So the next thing is we need to clean these containers, put them away, and then get on with our day. Now let's clean the containers and put them away so we're done with our project. And it's always good once in a while to clean off your tools. So that's what the insides look like. And I just want to give them a quick little rinse. Just like that. Now sometimes, like this one has a lot of coffee grounds, I could add that to vegetables that like more acidic type of soil. My onions seem to like it, so I can pour that in there. Now I'm going to empty the wheelbarrow. There's just a little bit of water, but it's pretty dirty. Now I'm going to fill it back up, and I'm going to put a little dish soap in it. This is the same stuff that I use for the soap spray. So that's enough of that. Because I've more or less rinsed these off, I can go ahead and put them right in. Now they get a little bubble bath. Notice the proximity again. It's all right here. And I can even rest my hand to make it easier for my back. If you have back challenges, I got a stable leg and I'm moving off the other leg. It's a small point, but I want you to have sustainability with your gardening. I want you to be able to do it throughout your life, not just, in your 20s or 30s. I'll let the water run like that, and I'm going to take the rag. Now, this is a courtesy cleaning. Mainly, I want to make sure there's not a lot of organic matter in the containers so they don't smell up my garage. But I'm not eating out of these containers. So this is a different level of cleanliness, okay? So take the rag, and it's just real quick like that. Toss them out. Just like that. Kind of give the outside a once over, and the inside I stick the rag in there and swish it around a couple times, and that's it. Next jar. Swish the rag around a couple times. That's it. So this goes by real fast. Rinse them. And these stakes are very convenient, so they can drip dry, like putting them on the line. Yeah, it's that fast. So now I'm going to gather up my lids. Now let's go back in the garage and put them away. And again, it's just a courtesy clean, so it's a courtesy dry. They don't have to be bone dry. Just get most of the water off of them. And there you have it. Put the back. One more step. Let's go get the jars. Put them away. So that's all the water that I use. Maybe 2 gallons for that whole job. Yeah. Think it out. Together, we're going to make this planet a much better place. And it's not so bad as it is when you really think about it. So where's he going to put it? The water? He's not going to dump it out. See that kale plant over there? Oh yeah, right there. Happy little kale plant. Take that, bugs. I cannot stress the proximity piece too much because everything is located so well relationally. I can do this so fast, even in real time. Now we're cutting out little bits for you in the video, but in real time, I did that whole procedure in less than 45 minutes. And it's done and it's all put away and that's it. And I'm ready to get on with my day. So when I think about my garden service, I know that, say once a month, every 6 weeks, something like that, my service that day is going to be the composting. It's that easy. The hard part is thinking it through. Where are you going to put your jars? In the kitchen. Where are you going to store them? Where are you going to set up your compost pit? And how close is that to where you're growing your food? Thanks for watching. And remember, let's grow more food and do a lot less work doing it.